If you like the sweet science, get ready to talk boxing on the Gloved Fist podcast with top boxing writers Frank Latirzo and Jack Hirsch. Frank, a former amateur boxer out of Philadelphia, writes for NY Fights and can be seen on the Boxing Channel. Jack, an amateur boxer who competed in the New York Golden Gloves, was a 6-term president of the Boxing Writers Association. And now, here's Frank Latirzo and Jack Hirsch.
And we're back. Welcome to Glove Fist. My name is Frank Latirzo, former writer, try to be a full-time observer, joined by Jack Hirsch, former 6-term president of the Boxing Writers Association of America, who said on another platform, I don't know anything about football because the Eagles got beat. This is a man who picked the Buccaneers to win the Super Bowl, and they didn't make the playoffs.
To go to the Super Bowl. I picked the Ravens to win the Super Bowl in the beginning of the year, and they didn't go to the playoffs.
So neither one of your teams made the playoffs.
Neither. My worst season is predicting NFL games in my life, by far. By far. I'm not doing that badly in the playoffs, but they're not hard games to pick. I don't pick according to the point spread, Frank. Just like in boxing, I don't pick according to rounds over and under. I'll pick a round.
I don't do that either.
It'll go to decision or it'll go to a round. Like if I like a fighter to win in 9, anywhere from 8 to 10 rounds, stop an opponent, I'll settle on the middle and usually say 9 rounds. We were talking before the show about football, the way football got it wrong with tonight's championship game between Michigan and Indiana by putting it the day after the NFL playoffs, because all people were talking about today, for the most part, were the NFL playoffs. The game's not getting the buzz tonight that it should get. And it made me think, on the spur of the moment, I hadn't thought of this before, Frank, but Change Boxing got it right. On January 31st, the weekend between football games, there's 2 weeks between the conference championship games and the Super Bowl. Nothing's going on. They're putting Shakur Stevenson and Teofimo Lopez that night. So that we're going to have to focus on that fight because there'll be no football or anything going on to take it away. It's going to be a main story. So boxing actually got it right the way they scheduled it. And I also saw a little clip today of Smokin' Joe Terry Daniels. And we always remember that New Orleans fight, Frank, as being the night before the Super Bowl.
They called it Super Night. It's a Super Fights. Les Kiter did I think he did the broadcast that night. Jack, 2 things. One, since I don't know anything about football, I'm going to try to get by on boxing, okay?
Stick to it, Frank. Stick to your strength. Frank, that's what you should do. You're like a pitcher who throws 100 miles per hour, and you need that strikeout, and you're getting cute throwing sliders, curveballs. Bring the heat, Frank.
My teams both made the playoffs.
You try to make yourself like an all-around sports guru. You run into problems. Stick to your specialty, boxing.
Both of my teams made the playoffs, okay? In that. I think it's just pure luck, Jack, that they got it right. It was probably the only way they could get the venue as far as the Stevenson and Lopez fight. I don't give boxing that much credit, but it is good that it falls in between those 2 big games. For the fact is, there is nothing going on that weekend. And I've said all during the year, because I'm a big college football fan, I can't stand when they have a big fight on a Saturday night, when you have LSU playing Alabama or Penn State playing Michigan or somebody, and I want to see the game and the fight. But luckily, we can go back and forth with the clicker.
But I kind of wonder what audience they play to, because you're an old-time fight fan who's a college football fan. But a lot of the young people today, they're not really college football fans. They're like maybe the UFC, the NBA, and you don't have the college football conflict, for someone like yourself, like a big college game.
But Jack, I think they're one and the same. I think I'm just going to go by my experience. Most of my friends who like boxing follow the NFL, and they may not be diehard college guys, but they're going to watch tonight's game and they're going to watch on Saturday. They may not be like me and plan their day around it, but they're going to watch, the ranked teams play. And I find that guys that like football like combat sports, and they'll watch boxing, they'll watch the UFC, they'll watch this RAF wrestling now. I just think they're one and the same. And I think that the crossover is there, but this sport has to give the boxing fans something to latch onto, Jack, and we just don't have it. We're going to talk in a minute about Oscar De La Hoya.
Today, Frank, what I did today, I made a bold move, a very bold move. I canceled, you heard me, canceled my subscription to DAZN, DAZN. I canceled it. And I was paying $224 a year. And when the Nui was fighting in Japan and they had that show a few weeks ago, I want to watch it. I see it's pay-per-view. Are you kidding me? Now, the Lopez-Stevenson fight, originally it wasn't supposed to be pay-per-view, but it's pay-per-view on DAZN. So why am I getting this? So what am I getting? I'm not paying $224 a year to see Raymond Maratella fight Andy Cruz. Very good fight, by the way. That's a very good fight. Don't get me wrong. But that's a lot of money, $224 a year for fights that I'm not going to stay up for till the wee hours of the morning, and give me quality for my money. Jack, there.
In less than 500 words, can you watch the fight on your TV, or do you have to watch it on your phone or your computer?
I've been watching it on my laptop / iPad.
So $225 a year, and you can't even see it on your TV.
No, there's a way to hook it up on your TV.
You just don't know how to do it.
Someone has to come in. It's a whole
Either do I.
It can be done. But the point is this. I shouldn't be spending it pay-per-view. Teofimo Lopez, Shakur Stevenson. Don't get me wrong. Canelo Alvarez, Terence Crawford, pay-per-view. Fine, I understand that. You'll get my money on mega fights like that, really big fights. But, Stevenson and Lopez is a wonderful fight. It's a big fight. But I'm going to get the pay-per-view. I'm going to look at my TV provider, see how I can get it. Or if I have to go through DAZN on a one-fight basis, only a one-show basis, I will get that show and watch.
Okay, my question is this.
Giving them $224 a year for much lower level fights.
What would be a fair price to pay for the year where you would get everything? You get Canelo and Crawford, and you get all the other local fights that are on, say, every other weekend. What would be a fair price to pay so you don't ever have to dig into your wallet or credit card again? What do you would you do $350 if you got all the fights?
Yes, I would absolutely. I would. But you have to consider this, Frank. How many fights are pay-per-view worthy throughout the year? Maybe a couple of them, maybe 3 at most. I mean, they're truly pay-per-view worthy.
Well, how many were there this year? We got Bitter Beef and Bivol.
You Bitter Beef and Bivol, yeah.
We got Crawford and Canelo. I mean, do we count Inouye's fights?
No,
I mean, are they?
No,
they're not Stop the World.
They're not pay-per-view worthy, and even Better Beef Bivol, that's for the hardcore fight fan. And it depends the type of show that they give you. And also, I'm not going to renew at ESPN Plus because I'm spending on ESPN Plus something like an additional $120 a year I was spending.
A year, right? Yeah, it's like $9.99 a month.
Right. But the thing about it is, I needed those platforms in the past when I wrote for Boxing News. I still write for Boxing News. I'm still their senior American correspondent. But Boxing News is now called Boxing News Monthly. It comes out once a month instead of once a week, and it's a bigger issue. So I'm primarily going to be doing feature stories. I'm not going to be doing fight reports. It's going to be rare. So why do I need ESPN Plus to cover Fight Show or DAZN? And you want to know something else, Frank? I can go to sleep early. get up, put on YouTube, and watch the fight. Watch it usually in the morning, a replay.
It's not the same, but I get your point.
But listen what the Zone's doing. They have a thing called a bundle. You get money off. If you get Lopez and Stevenson, which I'm going to get because, we had T.O. Sr. on this show. It's a heck of a fight, So we want, and the show, the undercard isn't bad either. So it's a type of show that's pay-per-view worthy in itself, that one show. But they want to bundle it with Ryan Garcia and Mario Barrios. Ryan Garcia gets caught for drug cheating, suspended a year, gets his behind kicked by Rolly Romero, and now he's pay-per-view, and I got to pay my money? Come on, give me a break. Get out of here.
I could live without seeing that fight.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to get that fight. If it wasn't on pay-per-view and was part of the Zone subscription, yeah, okay, fine. But pay-per-view, it's insane. And they
Jack,
yeah.
As I said, the day's coming, and I wish if they would just make it a little simpler, but I guess we're just dinosaurs and we don't count. As I told you last week, the Bears-Packers playoff game. We now have Paramount. We didn't have it that night. I wanted to leave. I wanted to see the game so bad. I drive up to the restaurant bar that's 1 mile away, sit there by myself and watch the game. But it's like they're doing it with football, and I believe the day's coming, like it is with boxing today. The day's coming in football where I really believe on Sunday afternoon, Jack, I think it's going to come where if you're a Miami fan and you want to watch the Eagles, you're going to punch in a certain code, and for $19.95 or $29.95, you're going to get to see the Eagles game. And if you're in Philly and you want to see the Rams, same thing.
It's possible you're right. I'm laughing now, not at what you're saying. I'm laughing at what Harold Lederman said to me over 30 years ago. I forgot the exact year when it was about 1994, I believe it was approximately. Correct me if I'm wrong. When the 49ers beat the Bengals in the Super Bowl, when Montana led that drive. I could be wrong.
1988.
1988, I'm not even close. Wow. So that's on me. 1988. I remember him telling me.
But I don't know anything about football.
The late great. You got me on that one. Okay, you got me on the date. Okay.
I'm not going to let that go. I'm going to have fun with that. So go ahead.
You're Jimmy Ellis and I'm smoking Joe Frazier in the first fight. You got the opening round, Frank. Good for you.
All right.
Jimmy Ellis is my favorite fight. I shouldn't say that. So that's kind of a compliment if I compare you to Jimmy Ellis.
I'm a big Ellis fan, Jack. I like Jimmy a lot.
Yeah. But Harold Lederman said to me after that game, and when you corrected me, 1988, in the future, these Super Bowl games are going to be pay-per-view. You're going to have to pay to see them. They're not going to be on free TV. But the NFL's kept it on free TV. And what is it, 38 years later? So that's why I was.
But Jack, you can see the water in the dam though has broken because the last 3 years, not all of the playoff games have been on network TV. I remember a couple of years ago, the Chiefs Dolphins was on Peacock. You had to get Peacock. And look, during the week, the Thursday night game used to be on CBS.
Yeah.
Then it was on the NFL Network, and now it's on Paramount. I didn't see any of the Thursday night games, and I just think, Jack, they could do that even more than boxing because it's such a bigger pool of fans.
I hate it when you have a hard time on the irregular TV. I got Amazon Prime on TV, but in New York, I can only see it on my iPad. I don't have it hooked up. In Florida, I could watch it on TV here. But the idea, a lot of people don't have it. They're missing the Thursday night games. And the majority of fans are missing, one playoff game. It's given to Amazon Prime. What the NFL is doing. An early round playoff game. Your Dolphins, a couple of years ago when they played the Chiefs in Kansas City.
And that bitter cold game.
Yeah, that was a game that was on Prime that you had to see. I mean, it wasn't open for the fans on a Saturday night the way it should have. And
as I predicted back then, Jack, I said that would be the high point of the Tua McDaniel era, and that was the high point of that era.
Oh, congratulate the Dolphins got a new coach today, by the way. You're Miami Dolphins. So,
Did they sign the Green Bay offensive coordinator?
Yeah, supposedly. That it makes me think with all the NFL head coaching changes, like Sean McDermott getting fired today, who makes more changes? Owners with coaches, managers in all sports, not just football, baseball, NBA, etc., or boxers with trainers. That's interesting.
Well, boxers only change the trainer, Jack, when they lose.
Boxers, oh yeah.
Mainly when they lose.
How many top of the line boxers? This is an interesting question. Changed their trainer after they won a fight, and it wasn't about money. They won their fight, so it wasn't about the result itself, and it wasn't about money, and they made a change. Normally, it's one of the two, if not both. The purses get bigger. They don't want to pay more. There's a conflict. Yeah. Or they lost.
I can't think off the top of my head. I mean, I'll be honest. I don't follow that part of boxing that much, but I can't think of many off the top of my head. The one that comes to mind that you just said was obviously when Leonard started making the monumental paydays, he did not want to give Angelo Dundee a percent. He wanted to give him a flat fee. And that's kind of where they had the falling out.
Dundee actually had a contract calling for 15%. He didn't have to let Leonard out of the contract. He kept getting harassed by Leonard's attorney, Mike Trainer, who was close with Sugar Ray. And finally, Dundee relented. And he later said he thought they'd be men and gentlemen after the Hagler fight. The Hagler fight, he got $175,000, which came out to 1.3%. Now, I think Leonard was being really tacky, not so much on the amount itself, but the circumstances. If I have a guy who let me out of giving 15% of my purse for the next fight, I'm not going to be so tacky. I'm going to give him against Hagler like $500,000 that would come out to closer to 5%. Figuring, okay, he let me out of the 15%. I saved $1 million there, etc.
Holmes, was he a nice guy? Was he a good guy? And why he answers that, Jack, let me just say this. And I don't know how to say it other than coming off like an old curmudgeon, get off my yard. As I get older, it's funny how I look at things differently as far as athletes that I worship, fighters that I worship. And Sugar Ray Leonard is one of those guys, Jack, that as I get older and I look back, I will always marvel at him as a fighter. No doubt about it. Top 10 pound for pound grade. I think he's the second greatest welterweight ever. But, Jack, as we find out more about him in the story, with Mike Trainer and Dundee, I just find that I just like him a little bit less than I used to. And I used to live and die with him. And, Jack, you know this because you've seen the stuff I posted. I have found over the last year, I like to, certain fighters have fans that are very protective of them. Mayweather fans, Ali fans, but I'll tell you what, Hagler fans, but I'll tell you what, Sugar Ray Leonard's fans, I'll tell you what, Jack, I found that they are more protective than Mayweather fans or Ali fans or Hagler fans or whoever you want to say. Boy, they don't want to hear anything negative about him. Just like I went on and on. It's like you and I both lived through this. Look, no one can tell me that rematch with Duran was not put together hastily because they knew Duran couldn't get in shape, but he wouldn't turn down $8 million. And that was all to benefit Leonard. And he had the edge all the way going in that fight. Like we have talked about for years, Mayweather always went in with a tilted field. Leonard did that too in some of his big fights, especially the Duran rematch.
Leonard always tried to manipulate the narrative. I mean, but you can't knock him for doing it. The idea is to try to get every advantage as you can. I mean, we're idealists. We want fighters to go in and say, okay, I'm going to beat my opponent and I don't want anything slanted in my favor. I just want to prove I'm better than him. But being idealistic,
Jack,
they
you're right.
try to get a competitive edge. I don't knock Leonard for that.
Jack, I'm not knocking that. You're absolutely right. My issue is, let's be honest and at least acknowledge it. Not many fighters could get over the way that Ali did, or Mayweather, or maybe Pacquiao to a degree, because they were the star. So they used that to their advantage. I'm not knocking them for that, but let's just not act like it didn't happen and everything was peaches and cream and he was so authentic about, I can't sleep until I beat Duran. Well, you know what? In my mind, and I love both of them, they had one legitimate fight. The third fight was a joke. The first fight, they had equal time to prepare. Duran was 29, and Hagler and Leonard was 24. They were both at or near their prime. And to me, in the most real fight they had, Duran won. Very close, but he won.
You can make the argument that they fought one another one time when they were both in their primes, and Duran won the fight. Duran was slightly better. And if
now, Holmes is saying the Hagler fight, but here's where I'll disagree a little bit with you there, Holmes. You're right. Leonard pulled the shenanigans with the size of the ring and the gloves. I'm not going to hear the 12 rounds baloney because Hagler fought Mugabe and Hearns in scheduled 12-rounders. But I blame Hagler for that because Hagler was so bullheaded that he could beat him, that he actually thought he could spot him a couple advantages. So I'm not going to kill Leonard for that one. I blame Hagler for being so headstrong that the guy's not in my league and I can beat him easily.
Well, if you agree to terms, you have to live with the consequences. I mean, if you agree to a smaller ring and you agree to fight 12 instead of 15 rounds, so be it.
But that was in the other two fights, Jack. That's why I don't fault Leonard for that, because Hagler's last two fights against Hearns and Mugabe were both scheduled 12-rounders. But let me ask you this. We both did a little boxing. Now, say we were going to fight.
Well, I want to praise you, Frank. First of all, I want to praise you because it's something you never talk about, and the viewers should know about it. You actually, in Smoking Joe Frazier's gym, you sparred with Leonard, you sparred with Michael Spinks, you sparred with Dwight Muhammad Qawi. Never mind that, the guys maybe took it easy on you, Frank. I'm only kidding.
That's why I'm punchy now.
Yeah. No, but you actually sparred with these legendary guys. So you experienced being in the actual ring with them.
Thanks, Jack. What I was going to say is, now why did I lose? You made me lose my point, Jack. We were talking about, okay. You and I both boxed, okay? Now, we decide we're going to fight each other, all right? If I said to you, Jack, in order for me to go through with the fight, I want a bigger ring, I want bigger gloves, I want 10 instead of 8-ounce gloves, and if you want to throw in, I want 12 rounds instead of 15 rounds. What am I telling you? What message was Leonard delivering to Hagler if he wanted bigger gloves and a bigger ring? He wasn't going to slug. He was going to box, and he was going to make sure or do everything he could to keep it from becoming a fight. I remember, Jack, when that happened, I said to all my buddies at that time, I said, Leonard is telling Hagler exactly what he wants to do. He doesn't want he wants big gloves to soften the impact, and he wants more room for Hagler to have to track him down. So I get mad at Hagler saying, well, I didn't realize he was going to fight like that. Well, what did you think he was going to do? He definitely wasn't going to fight you like Hearns did.
Well, Hagler wanted to fight so bad because Leonard had only fought once in 5 years, which makes his victory remarkable. But then again,
right.
Leonard was 2 years younger than Hagler, and he didn't have the wear and tear. And he looked so bad in the one fight in between against Kevin Howard. That stuck on people's minds, plus the issue with the eye. And I brushed off Leonard's chances at the time. I was complacent in making a prediction. It was one of those things, well, if Sugar Ray was in his prime, he could beat Hagler, but there's no way he's anywhere near that Hagler is going to walk through him. That
was my best call ever, Jack.
That was my. You picked Leonard to win that fight.
Oh, the second the fight was signed,
Okay.
there was never a doubt in my mind. Same thing, Jack. Leonard sat there on HBO from 1983 to 1987, and he watched Hagler's fights. Duran told him after Duran fought Hagler, he said, you can beat him because you're quicker than I am. You have a little bit better legs. He's a sucker for a lead right hand. And the fact is, Leonard waited till Hagler started this, till he took a lot of punches against Mugabe. And then in the interview with Larry Merchant, he goes, you know, Larry, goes, you might not see me again. I think I've had enough. What did that tell you?
I disagree with you on one phase of the fight. You didn't talk about it on this show. You've mentioned in the past. I very much disagree with you. The early rounds of the fight, Hagler was complacent. There was no urgency. He was switching.
I've never disputed that.
Back and forth. Had Hagler come out with the same mindset and intensity he had against Tommy Hearns, he would have beaten Leonard that night. Hagler was unstoppable to win against Hearns because the early rounds, he would have completely taken Leonard out of his comfort zone, and he wouldn't have lost those early rounds. Like the first 6 rounds, he lost 5 of the first 6 rounds. Okay? And there's no way he would have lost 5 of the first 6 rounds. And Hagler was so well conditioned, Leonard wasn't going to overtake him in the later stages of the fight. It wasn't a question where Hagler was going to tire and Leonard was going to then come on in rounds 10, 11, and 12.
Where I see your point, Jack. I think that Hagler needed Leonard to slow down a little bit. I think that's why he wasn't overly aggressive, and trapping Leonard and going crazy after Leonard like he did against Hearns, I don't think would have ever worked. And I think he knew that. Hearns was a bigger target and was looking for a reason to sit down on that right hand. And when he saw Hagler coming to him, he never even thought about boxing. He thought, okay, here's my shot. I'll catch him coming in. I don't know if that strategy would have worked with Hagler, but he could have done better than he did if he would have been more.
Well, you and I looked at the fight and we saw Leonard winning the first 4 rounds because Hagler didn't do much at all. But
I had it 4-zip that night.
Right. Same as
I gave Hagler the 5th round.
But I watched in all fairness, I watched the replay because the movie theater I was in, the picture went blank and we couldn't see the fight live. And I had to view the replay and then score it that way. And that's not the best way. But I watched it multiple times, and I have a hard time making a case for Hagler. I'd have to give him the benefit of the doubt in just about in every instance to push him ahead 7 rounds to 5, and I can't do that. But a lot of people, strangely, they did have it 6-6. I mean, a lot of people feel Hagler won, but I don't think they ever scored the fight. They just watched it and had an impression. They watched the whole fight as one big round. And they saw Hagler having some good moments in the second half of the fight. So they forget the early rounds that Leonard, I don't want to say stole those rounds, but did enough to win them early, in large part because of Hagler's inactivity.
Jack, the night of the fight, watching it live, I went to the Halloran Plaza in Pennsauken, me and my best friend, and we were both rooting for Leonard. Well, he was really rooting for Leonard. I was kind of on the fence for a couple different reasons, but Jack, I remember leaving that night, and I actually thought a split decision was a bad decision because I actually thought watching the fight that night in the moment, I thought Leonard won 8 or 9 rounds. When I watched it on HBO the following Saturday, I saw this was a little closer than I thought that night. But in the moment, watching the fight, to me, it looked like Hagler was in the mud and Leonard was on roller skates. And he looked so slow.
Sometimes they get carried away watching a fight. It happens to anyone. I remember the second Ali Frazier fight. If you remember the last round of the fight, Ali was shuffling and trying to put on a show for the fans, the club.
Within the last minute.
And Frazier was grinding away. It was a very close round. 2 of the 3 judges gave it to Frazier. And a friend of mine said, he was shocked. He says, I thought Ali won that last round big. Because
Ali didn't do nothing until the last minute, and he did the shuffle, but none of the punches had any effect.
Right. But, you get caught up in everything. Getting off what we were talking about a second, there was some big news going on right now. And this is what I meant to mention early in the show. I think what bothers you the most, Frank, is not what you were talking about before. It's big fights that should get made that aren't getting made. And I think the fight that we both want to see, it's Boots Ennis against Vergil Ortiz. I think you and I are on the same page. It's not a 50-50 fight, but it is a 50-50 fight. We both like Boots. We're both very confident Boots would win. So to you and I, we know who we're going to pick. But a lot of people are going to be picking Vergil Ortiz to win.
That's what makes it a great fight, Jack. That's why we have to see it.
But Oscar De La Hoya, the promoter Vergil Ortiz, is getting sued by him. Oscar was talking bold, like he was in charge, and usually promoters are. And Ortiz's manager came out and said, no, we're negotiating still. Oscar can't say we're not negotiating. We respect Oscar, but we want this fight. I'm going to speak to Matchroom about it. Then you knew there was some trouble because the manager's doing his job. He's saying, look, the promoter can't tell us we're not going to have to fight, even though technically he might be able to hold it up because it depends how the contract is written. I spoke to a well-known manager over the weekend, and I'm not going to mention his name. And he said it depends how the contract is written up. Sometimes the fighter and manager do have to get the promoter to sign off on it. But the point is, Ortiz wanted it bad enough. He was basically at the point where he's ordered Oscar, make the darn fight. I'm demanding you make it. And Oscar's holding off for better terms, saying we could fight Errol Spence, Sebastian Fondura. We're not going to fight Boots Ennis. But now with this lawsuit, because Golden Boy's not going to let Vergil Ortiz just fight, he might not be able to box for a while, Vergil Ortiz. Remember the layoffs that Andre Ward had with the Goossens, his promoter, Terence Crawford with Top Rank. It took him a while, those guys, to have the big fights. This Ortiz-Ennis fight might not take place for a couple of years, and only if assuming that both guys, it's a viable fight to make. Boots has to remain unbeaten, which I would think there's a good chance he'd be. Ortiz has to fight in the interim, but then again, Ortiz could lay off a year, and they can still make the fight. If they could market Keith Thurman, still, they could certainly market Vergil Ortiz.
So here we go, Jack. We have a big fight that everybody would love to see, that we'd be willing to pay for, and it's probably not going to happen. And I just want to acknowledge Holmes, who I'm assuming his favorite fighter is Larry Holmes. Leonard said Duran left the blueprint on how to beat Hagler. That is correct, sir. He did say that, and that got the wheels turning in Leonard's head. Back to what we were talking about, Jack. I'm just so tired of talking about fights that just aren't even close to being signed. And the only thing I can say is this. Oscar De La Hoya, who I liked a lot as a fighter, I thought when he became part of a promoter and in the business, I really thought it would be a good thing. I'm having a hard time liking Oscar and his little juvenile games where he goes on his bad boy.
What is it? Clapback Thursdays?
Something like that, and he just starts. He's ripping Canelo. He's ripping Crawford. It's like, please, Oscar, grow up.
You know what he does? It's not dignified. He even gets into it with Edgar Berlanga, and he calls him Edgar Bumlanga. It sounds funny when he says it. People might chuckle a moment.
He tries to be like Charles Barkley.
It doesn't help. Yeah, it's not helping with business because the guys under your promotional banner, you want your promoter to be dignified. You don't want him to be clownish in a way. And also, he had the falling out with Canelo. I can understand Oscar being extremely disappointed. I get all that completely. But a lot of fighters who even he promotes look up to Canelo, okay? And to do that, and he was also Oscar ripping into Terence Crawford. Oh,
about Mayweather being much greater.
not that his point might be well taken. It's a matter of opinion, okay? Matter of opinion. But Oscar went out of his way to attack Crawford. Why? Because Crawford never fought for him. And he once met Crawford, him and Bernard Hopkins, to try to negotiate for Golden Boy to promote, Crawford. So that's his way of, it's kind of pettiness.
That's so juvenile, isn't it?
And Oscar does have a problem outside of all that. I know that, but I'm not going to get into it.
I have one for you, Jack. Who wins at junior middleweight, De La Hoya or Canelo? That's a very intriguing fight.
I think Oscar, actually.
You think he outboxes them?
You nailed it perfectly, Frank. Oscar would not exchange with him. Oscar would box him. I think it would be a highly competitive fight. Canelo would have a lot more success in the second half of the fight. But I think Oscar could get ahead of him in the early rounds and maintain the lead.
If Oscar boxes him and uses his jab and fights him like he did Mosley the second time, there's definitely a path for Oscar. And neither guy's going to knock the other guy out.
Assuming Oscar fights very smartly and it's at his very best, at his very peak. Yeah.
I think I posted it a couple days ago. It was the anniversary of the Foreman Cooney fight. 35 years, 36 years. And I remember, Jack, I went to see both Foreman and Cooney train in Atlantic City about a week before the fight. And I remember I said to one of my buddies, I says, George looks awful slow. If Cooney doesn't try to knock him out and he uses his legs and boxes him a little bit, there's a path for Cooney to win the fight. And as we saw when they got in there, Cooney saw this big, slow, lumbering guy, and he says, I know I can hit hard and I can land on him. And that ended up being, the path for Foreman to get him.
It's funny thing, guys, in training, I don't know whether I ever told you, 1 week before Sugar Ray Leonard fought Terry Norris in 1991, things were slow in New York. He was training both of them were training at the Kingsway Boxing Gym in Manhattan.
Right.
There was virtually no media there to see them. I was showing up throughout the week. I know it sounds crazy. Only 5,000 people came to the Garden. There was no media at that time. It was a joke. We didn't have the internet or all that around. That was the dark ages. But I remember watching them both working out in the gym separately, of course, separate times. And I remember how good Terry Norris looked. Fast, sharp, and Leonard kind of looked a little oldish there in comparison. He wasn't vibrant the way we picture Sugar Ray, how he is in his prime. And of course, I picked Leonard to win because he was Sugar Ray Leonard. I think, okay, Norris will be outboxed. I took the cop out. Norris will be outboxing him. It'll be ahead on points, and Leonard will catch him. That was the ultimate cop out. Because if I didn't know the two guys' names, I would have unhesitatingly picked Norris, just seeing how much better physically he looked.
You're not going to believe this. You're not going to believe this. About a week to 10 days before the Norris fight, Leonard came to Philly for a promo tour, and he was with his, I don't think she was his wife yet. Her name was Bernadette. Very pretty, light-skinned girl, dark hair. And he didn't even box, Jack. He just worked out, hit the bag and so forth, and he spent more time. In fact, the 3 or 4 times I was around Leonard, that was about the most I ever got to speak with him, which I will admit was very enjoyable. But it's funny, and there was hardly anybody in the gym there. Fast forward 4 years or 5 years to 96, when he fought Camacho, he was training at the Pleasantville Rec, and I went to see him, and he didn't spar again that day, but I was told by the guys that were training there that the day before he sparred a couple of local guys and didn't do good. Then he wouldn't spar in front of the media.
Well, there's that famous story of Quincy Taylor rocking him before the Hagler fight, and that convinced him he better box Hagler.
Because he thought he could slug with him before that.
Yeah, I want what I wanted to talk about, talking about great fighters. I kind of want to switch the topic to Roy Jones. Our friend, our mutual friend, J. Russell Peltz, okay, great promoter from Hall of Fame promoter from Philadelphia. Has been on this show a number of times. Was on it, in fact, last month with the fighter he manages now, Bryce Mills.
Who has a fight coming up in February, I believe.
Right. He created a little controversy, Russell. He was basically saying Roy Jones is a great talent, but hold off on calling him a truly great fighter, because what has he actually done compared to the fighters of the past? He more or less said that.
Well, I think he said he never traveled overseas to fight any of the European guys, and he compared them to the other guys, other great fighters that did that. And I think that was his issue. He didn't go over to fight Ben. He didn't fight Maklashevsky. I don't think he said. I think he mentioned Collins. I think that was his beef.
But who was going overseas from having those fights in those days? I mean, the other guys weren't doing it either.
But I think he thought they were big because they would be big fights there.
I think what he did, what Russell said to me, and this is a better argument, he said it to me a while ago. Take fighters like Emil Griffith and Louis Rodriguez. When they lost something off their fastball, they could still beat top guys going to their hometown. Once Roy lost something off his fastball, he kind of faded.
Okay, Jack, who do we compare him to? What other great fighter could you say that about exactly?
Who, when he fell off the cliff, fell off? Well, Benitez.
No, not so much falling off the cliff. When he wasn't the brilliant athlete anymore and didn't have the blinding speed, he started to hit a lot more. The difference was this guy had a great chin. It's Ali.
Well, no, but certain other guys, when they started slowing down, they didn't fall apart completely. Listen, Pernell Whitaker, by the time he fought De La Hoya, he wasn't quite the same fighter he was earlier, that he was a lightweight. He was a little past his prime.
But Jack, my point is this. Roy Jones, like Ali, never learned fundamental defense and didn't really have good fundamentals. But it never came back to bite them because they were just so much more talented and faster than the other guy. When they slowed down, that's when their lack of fundamentals and defense became an issue. The difference is Jones didn't have Ali's chin. But think of it this way, Jack. Look at Larry Holmes. Look how Holmes fought into his 40s and had success. Why?
Absolutely.
Because he was a much better fundamental fighter than Ali, and he just didn't depend on his athleticism. And Roy had such an overload of athleticism, he didn't need fundamental defense. He could fight with his hands down. He could just put his hands behind his back and hit guys and make them look bad.
Well, Holmes had more respect for his craft than Ali did.
That too.
Holmes usually kept in at least semi-shape. Ali would do nothing between fights, and he'd say, I need 6 weeks of training. And then he'd have a fight against a guy like Chuck Wepner. He said, 3 weeks should be enough. And he meant it. Ali would be beating some of these guys just on talent.
Right.
And then he would show up for a big fight against the Kenny Norton and maybe put in a hard 8-9 weeks of training. But when you're doing nothing for a few months before that, I mean, you're losing it. You're losing what
Jack,
have.
But during his first reign, he never got out of shape.
No,
from 64 to 67, he was always, although he was fighting a lot too, but he was always in shape.
Boxing, right.
When he came back, I guess he really, really let himself go after he beat Foreman. Up until that 72, 73, the end of 71, he was still in pretty good shape. But after he beat Foreman, Jack, he fought 6 times in 72.
He came back, and when he fought Jerry Quarry off the long layoff, he hadn't been doing as much as he should have during the layoff. No one prevented him from going to a gym, doing road work and all that.
But he didn't think he was ever going to fight again, Jack. He never thought he was going to get his license back.
Listen, Frank, I still go to the gym. I still work out most days. Come on, and I'm not getting
Jack, that's you. But some of these guys don't do that. He never thought he was convinced because of his stance, the government was never going to allow him to fight again, and he let himself go. I can't kill him for that if he didn't think he was going to fight again.
I kind of enjoyed our guest we had 2-3 weeks ago, Price Taylor, the unbeaten heavyweight from Brooklyn. He was lecturing you, Frank, on why road work isn't important to him. And he was giving you a lecture, Frank. You move your feet, it won't do anything for me. And he's winning now, so whatever. And he's on the way.
At this level, he can probably get away with it.
On this level, he said he could beat Usyk, and he explained to you how he would beat Usyk too. So,
good luck with that.
Okay, but listen, I already arranged it with Price's manager. If he becomes the world heavyweight champion, I'm guaranteed by his manager that he will come on our show.
And I wish him nothing but the best.
Yeah,
I think he has a lot to learn, but I wish him nothing but the best.
Of course.
So what are you saying about Roy Jones, Jack? You think that Russell was too tough on him?
Yeah, well, I understand where Russell is coming from, but what I think Russell doesn't fully understand is what he's trying to make us understand, and he's made me understand it to a large degree. If people want to compare Lennox Lewis to John L. Sullivan and say, well, Lennox Lewis would have knocked him out in 30 seconds, it would have been a joke of a fight. They're thinking of the Lennox Lewis as opposed to John L. Sullivan at his time. And according to Russell, and he's correct, if Lennox Lewis was around in John L. Sullivan's time, he wouldn't be that big. He would have to travel by boat. There wouldn't be modern technology. He'd have to chop down trees. He wouldn't have had the improved technique.
I've had those conversations with him, Jack. You're right.
Right. And Russell is absolutely right. Situations have changed completely.
But wait a second, Jack. That's why you can't see. That's the thing. That's why you can't compare eras, because you can't bring John L. Sullivan up to 2004 because you just don't know what he would be, and you can't take Lennox Lewis back to 1888. You can't do that. So the only thing I think what most guys try to do is, okay, the best Lewis we saw, Lennox, against the best Joe Louis or whatever. And that's what you can do, but you really can't do that. I mean, look how much sports has changed. The undefeated Dolphins probably couldn't beat Indiana if you could put them on the field together. You just can't do it.
They would beat the college team, Indiana. That's getting a little.
But Jack, you know the point I'm making.
The Dolphins would have beaten this college team.
Well, wait a second, Jack. You say that. You know how much bigger Indiana would be than those Dolphins? The Dolphins linemen were 240. Larry Zonka, 240, was as big as the lineman on his team. Nick Bonicani was 215. Their safeties were 160 and 170. I mean, I don't know about that.
Modern players are better without question, but let me throw this by you. Ali used to always say, oh, the old timers like Joe Louis.
You called him the shuffler.
But think of this. Lewis's last fight was 1951, October 1951. Ali won the gold medal in 1960 in the Olympics. So they were in big major fights, less than a decade apart. So how is Lewis was closer to being Ali's contemporary than being an old timer? But people don't realize that. They're thinking, oh,
well, you can't use 1960, Jack. You can't say Ali was in a big fight at 60 and Lewis was in 151.
Well, let's put it this way: they're professional fights. Ali's debut and Lewis's last fight against Marciano were less than a decade apart. When you think of it, okay. So how much has changed? Just like I'm hearing people saying, someone told me that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, oh, he couldn't compete with these guys so and so. But when you look at I think with Elijah Wan or whatever. No, forget that. I think I got it wrong, the timeline. But what I'm trying to say, you look at an old timer like the big O Oscar Robertson, okay? And he was only, what, a decade apart from Bird and Magic. So what was
Oscar was at his best. No, Jack, it's 20 years. Oscar was at his peak in, like, say, 65, 63 with the Royals.
But talking boxing, the Ali of 65, 66, we would pick him to beat any heavyweight today. I don't think we would, as much as we respect Usyk and Fury and Joshua, we wouldn't pick them to beat Ali. We wouldn't pick Usyk to beat the best of Ali.
But Jack, we're talking about the guy that may be the best ever. And remember, he is just big enough and he's versatile that he's one of the few guys that could go, forward or backwards. I mean, if you think about it, Ali and Marciano are definitely the same era because Marciano's peak was what, 52? Ali's peak was 65, 66. That's 14 years?
They were heavyweight champions less than a decade apart.
Right.
Marciano wasn't an old timer compared to Ali when you think of it.
Just like Jack. So if we go back, if Usyk is the best heavyweight today, and I don't think anybody disputes that, if we go back 20 years, we're at 206. Okay. That's about, let's just say that's the difference, almost the difference between Ali and Joe Louis. 25 years or so. Okay. I could see Usyk beating Lennox Lewis. I could see Usyk beating those guys.
I'm not sure who would win those fights. I would have to sit down.
Would you consider it the same era? Jack, that's my question. Is Lennox Lewis's era the same as Usyk's?
Well, it's not the same era, but I think it is the same all in all. I mean, ability-wise and everything. I think Lennox Lewis, there was more quality in his era than there is.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. But I mean, has the heavyweight division evolved from 2005 to today?
It hasn't evolved for the better, no.
No. There's the evolution argument. I don't think so. Okay, so if we go back 40 years, now we're at 1986. Larry Holmes, Witherspoon, and Tyson were probably the top three heavyweights of the 80s. How would they do if we move them up to 2026?
Well, Witherspoon would not beat Tyson Fury, okay, even if he was in shape. And I know he has the chopping right hand. And Tyson, on a given night or whatever, could beat any heavyweight on a given night. Not that I would pick him to do it.
Mike Tyson.
Mike Tyson. Not that I pick him to do it. But when you look at Holyfield too would be a handful. Anyway, I don't know whether Usyk would beat Holyfield. I mean, it would be.
No, I would favor Holyfield there, but I think it'd be really close.
It would be a close fight. It would be a close fight.
So the only place evolution comes into it, and I'm not going to go back to John L. Sullivan, but in the heavyweight division, the difference is, look, Ali during his era was bigger than everybody. Today, he'd be a small heavyweight. Joe Louis would be a cruiserweight. It's like that's the only division where everything has changed because of the size. A middleweight is still middleweight today, as it was 60 years ago.
Look at Joe Louis's fights against Abe Simon. He was considered a giant at the time. Abe Simon, what did he weigh? I don't know his exact weight.
256, something like that.
Right, exactly. He outweighed Louis by about 50 pounds. But the point is, it took Louis 13 rounds to chop him down in the first fight. Second fight, when Louis was maybe the greatest fighter of all time in rematches. He was much better.
Right.
It still took him 6 rounds against a guy he was so much more skillful than. It was probably because of Abe Simon's size. Okay, why it took that amount of time.
So I don't get your point. What are you saying?
My point is size does matter. I don't want to hear from people, it doesn't mean a thing. I mean, if one fighter is so much more skillful than the other, yeah, then it doesn't matter as much. Like Jack Dempsey knocking out Jess Willard. Willard wasn't a skillful heavyweight in the real sense of the word.
I agree,
was
Holmes.
Young. He was ferocious. He was a tiger. Willard comes into the fight out of shape. Of course, it was target practice for Dempsey. Usyk beating Fury, he did it in large part because Usyk has such an incredible skill level going back from the amateurs. He truly knows how to box and fight.
That's what I love about Usyk, Jack. The fact that he's 6'3", between 220 and 224, and he showed that if you can box, you can beat big guys like Anthony Joshua. And he didn't get the best Tyson Fury, but he clearly beat him both times they fought.
Why didn't he get the best Tyson Fury? He got Fury at his best.
Keep talking, Jack. I'm going to sneeze.
Yeah, he got Fury at his best. I don't want to hear after the fact. I mean, Fury's performances were good going into the fight. I mean,
Jack, you're going against what you said back then. We both liked Fury to beat Usyk until we saw him fight Ngannou, and we both realized he's shot. Right. He has nothing left, and that's what swayed me. I don't think
I take it
Usyk
back.
did not fight the same Tyson Fury that Wilder fought or Klitschko.
Good one. I give you credit there, Frank. I forgot about that, and you reminded me what I said at the time. So, okay, that's good.
So he didn't beat the best Tyson Fury, but I'm not saying he couldn't have beat him, Jack.
But Fury,
Excuse me.
But this wasn't the Fury in the Ngannou fight. Fury showed up in top form, but the problem with Fury was, I guess, I don't want to say abused his body, but when you're that
but he did. Say it. He abused his body with drugs, alcohol, and food. And he didn't just do that between one fight. He did it sustained over 6-7 years, and that takes a lot out of you. And I don't care how hard you train, you can't turn the clock back on that.
Yeah, I mean, your point's well taken. And Usyk, we have to also keep an eye on his age too. I know age isn't as big an issue as it used to be.
But he doesn't abuse himself. He doesn't get out of shape between fights. And the way we're seeing it now, I mean, look, I think most people would say the three best guys, if Crawford was still in the game, are Crawford, Usyk, and Inoue. Where Crawford and Usyk are both 38. I think Inoue's what, 32? So he still has a ways to go.
Age just isn't important anymore.
Why, Jack? Because they don't fight as much?
Somehow in boxing, you can take a shortcut. If this was track and field and you were running the 100 meters, you couldn't get away with any of this stuff. You have to train like a maniac for your whole career. You can't have these layoffs because it does catch up to you. In boxing, you can take shortcuts. Even, we hear George Foreman, how miraculous he regained the heavyweight title by defying Father Time at age 45.
He didn't defy Father Time.
No, Michael Mora was shutting him out, beating the heck out of him. It was one-sided. He just happened to catch Mora. Kudos to Foreman. It was a great accomplishment.
But Jack, here's the thing, though, and here's why.
We have about a minute left, Frank.
Here's why, as much as I give Foreman credit, remember, Ron Lyle and Ernie Shavers both tried to come back in their 40s, and they both got embarrassed. Foreman was a physical human freak of nature, and because he had such an overload of strength and durability, Jack, that's what enabled him to get there. Because as you said, Michael Moore was pitching a shutout, but Foreman still had that bomb. Even though it wasn't the bomb that he got Lyle out with, or Frazier or Norton, it was still 70% of it, and 70% of him was still more than anything anybody else had.
We have to wrap it up. Give me a prediction on tonight's game, and then we have to go.
I'm going to go with Indiana to win, but I like Miami to cover, Jack. I don't think it's going to be a blowout.
I like Indiana by a couple of touchdowns.
All right, well, that means they cover because it's 8.5.
Well, I'm not betting.
You have a rooting interest?
I kind of want to see the Indiana Hoosiers win because I think it would be better for college football. It's off the charts, a team from Indiana winning college football championship. We're used to them being a basketball town.
Well, since I'm an SEC guy, I don't want the Big Ten to win, but I don't want Miami to win. So I'll find a way to enjoy either one.
Okay. Good night, everyone. We'll see you all next week.
Good night. See you next week.